there, my name is Jamie Bradford, and this is my mapping project for Geography of Michigan 354. I chose to investigate the relationship between unemployment rates and vacant housing rates across the state of Michigan. The general idea here was to determine how these two are related. Are they directly related, where one happens to see the other? Are they completely unrelated? Are they inversely related? And then the second part of this was to determine the spatial distribution. Do these things happen more near cities or more in the rural areas across the state? So my hypothesis was that there was a direct relationship between vacant homes and unemployment. I thought that where you would see one, you'll see the other. The second part of my hypothesis identifies that the rates would be higher in urban areas of the state. Now, I just want to explain a moment why I chose that part. So basically, it was all based on access. I figured that in urban areas, you'll have more access to job assistance, financial aid. You'll have more access to homeless shelters, more access to food pantries or soup kitchens, and more access to medical care, free clinics, and that sort of thing. So I just figured that if you're unemployed and you're poor, you would aggregate in urban areas because all of these things are available to you. So that was why I chose those things. So it was done probably the same as most of you did your mapping projects. I basically took an average state comparative population standard for both vacant houses and unemployment. For vacant houses, I got my data from the 2010 census, and for unemployment, I got my data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor. And I took the state average, and then I went by each county, each of the 83 counties in Michigan, and divided that county average by the state average for both of these things individually, and then I mapped them onto the Michigan state maps that from the Michigan State University website, and then I mapped the land quotients. So the results of this were very interesting. So to the left here we have unemployment, to the right we have vacant homes. As you can see, there's that transition line that we discussed earlier. Above that line you have higher rates of vacant homes and higher rates of unemployment. Below that line you have less unemployed people and less vacant homes. Now, as you can see, it's not exact. There are a few discrepancies here and then in the thumb where they don't entirely match up, but they're so similar, you can't really say that they're completely unrelated. This is not a random distribution, clearly. And then it's also close enough to call them related, in my opinion. Now, correlation does not necessarily equal causation, and that's what's happening in these two areas here. For example, right here in the thumb, you have a high rate of unemployment, but they're staying in their houses. So it's not exact, but it's very similar enough to call it related. So I gave a big thumbs up to the first part of my hypothesis. Now the second part of my hypothesis was proven very, very wrong. Actually, dead wrong. It actually turns out to be exactly the opposite of what I originally thought it would be. And this kind of threw me off, to be perfectly honest, when I looked at this distribution. Because as you can see, in the more urban areas, you have less of this poverty. So the big question here is why? Why are we seeing this distribution? And I kind of went on a frenzy here, but I'm going to give you 3 to 4 basic reasons why we could be seeing this distribution. The first one is what's called rural-urban migration. So people in rural areas are now migrating to urban areas to get better jobs, employment, which is why we see the higher rate of employed people in the urban areas. These people from the rural areas are flocking there. As they flock, they're leaving their homes. Now, if you're looking for a good job, you're probably younger, you're probably able-bodied. When you lose all of your young, working-class, able-bodied people, that does a really big, detriment to your society, your economy, which is why you have an increased rate of unemployment, which is why you have increased vacant housing. These people are leaving their houses behind to go to urban areas. And I do believe that some of it has to do with people going to urban areas to receive these assistances. You know, like what we discussed earlier, the medical care, the employment, the food pantries, the assistance. But anyway, so rural-urban migration was a big trending one that I saw in a lot of research. Another one that kind of sprung up to me as obvious after, a lot of research was in the Upper Peninsula. You have, all of these old natural resource-based economies that went bust. You have your old iron ore, your copper mines, your lumber industry. It all went bust. So you had these once booming economies truly back in the day that, they had all these paternalistic company towns built. And what happens when your natural resource that you base your entire economy on goes bust? Well, you leave. You leave your homes. You increase the vacant home rate. You go find other jobs in other places, leaving all of these secondary industries to kind of pick up the pieces. So that's another reason. And then one that I thought was kind of interesting was an increased elderly retired population, which contributes to your unemployment, right? If you're retired, you're not working typically. Some people do, but so that increases your unemployment rate. But then on top of it, it's a touristing industry. So you have these seasonal homes that you visit, during the season, which provides seasonal industries. So it kind of artificially inflates these numbers because it's seasonal. So those are three reasons why we might see these trends across the state. There are several more, but you probably don't want to hear them all. So what's the importance of this study? Well, it identifies the spatial distribution of wealth across the state. It reveals that correlation between vacant homes and unemployment rates, and it has implications for future aid and development, and I think that this one here is going to be the most important. We can clearly see that we have more of the assistance programs, better medical care, more qualified, physicians to attend to people with medical problems in urban areas, but we have all of these unemployed people in vacant homes in the rural areas. So there's a clear disconnect there that I think would be really important in future research and in future relief studies to determine where we're going to put that money, where we're going to put our aid, where we're going to build these, infrastructures. So that's a few big things. So conclusions for this, my hypothesis was right and wrong. There was a direct relationship between these two variables. However, I was dead wrong on the second part, that they were going to be found more in urban areas as opposed to rural areas. It was the exact opposite. So 2, we found that the lower portion of the Lower Peninsula is distinctly different than that of the Upper Peninsula, and lower part of the Upper Peninsula, or upper part of the Lower Peninsula and Upper Peninsula. There was that direct line there. And the rural communities of the state of Michigan tend to have higher unemployment rates and higher amounts of vacant homes. So that's all. If you want to read my paper, send me an email. I'll get you. These are all just the references I use for my paper. So if you want some information, just let me know. But thank you for your time, and that's my mapping project.